I've never heard a church this quiet. Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. My name is Gary Kadash. I am the Vice Chairman, acting as Chairman of the GAC Commission. I would like to open this meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We've got a lot of important business to conduct tonight. Wait for Rep. Dumays to join us. First order of business is to review the public commission meetings for the public meeting of notes for the meeting of February 16th.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may just raise a point of order. At the March 11th special meeting, I mentioned that Mr. McLear's term has expired. We did not address that at the meeting. The county delegation has since addressed it and declared a vacancy, which means there is no one in that seat. So I do have to object that Mr. McLear is sitting at the commissioner's table and about to participate in votes.
Well, my attorneys say that that's not correct, and I would like to pursue that through the law, through the courts, and we'll find out who feels that we're right or wrong. And I was nominated to be a member of this group. I was put up for 5 years, which is notice area commissioner, and it says at the top, one appointment to 5-year commissioner of 5 years, blah, blah, blah. And we had conferring information from Mr. Sylvia, who I believe is here, and is in charge of, well, not in charge of, but is the head of the organization. And I don't really particularly want to make a big deal out of this, but that's what my lawyers tell me. And you know, when you pay your lawyer, you're supposed to pay your lawyer. You're supposed to listen to your lawyer. And so I'm listening to my lawyer.
Okay, David, this is the third time you've been in a meeting. We never get past the opening minutes, and we've already gone into a dispute. If you look on the agenda, we have commissioner status. After new commissioner swearing in, I recognize you've already been sworn in, but that's traditionally, we're not going to do a swearing in because I accept that you were sworn in at another place and another time in another forum. But what I would like to do is proceed with approving the minutes of the prior meetings.
I have no objection to that. I just wanted my objection noted for the record.
Okay, it's noted for the record, and we will be addressing that in addition to what Commissioner McLear had to say on his behalf. I have a copy of a letter from Chairman Sylvia. I also have a copy of an opinion from a lawyer, so we have two different points of view here. I have a proposal, especially since there's been a notice given for an appointment hearing to be done April 26th, is it?
12th.
April 12th, with applicants to come in by the 2nd, I think it was, or something like that. I can find the notes here somewhere. We're ballpark close. So we are weeks away from either reappointing Commissioner McLear or appointing a different person. So let's go through the meeting agenda. It's so recorded. So has everybody read, of the commissioners, have you read the minutes of the February 16th meeting, and does anybody have any comments or corrections?
Yes, on page 1, under financial MD&A, it says Kathy reported out on. Every committee that I've been on, we usually use either first and last name because the chance of two Kathys being in a small group like this is high, so I think usual protocol is first name, last name, or first initial, last name, so I would
That's a
suggest
fair
we say
comment,
Kathy
thank
White.
you. We can make that change.
And if I may, could we strike out on, so it just reads Kathy White reported the January and year-to-date financials? Because out on is, I think, extraneous language.
That's fine. Anybody else have any comments on,
Page 3 of 5, subparagraph 3 at the top. I need to clarify the question that I asked. It says Commissioner Ness asked if it would require approval of the U.S. Department of the Interior. I think I stated actually that there's a encumbrance under a federal program called the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And the enabling legislation and that program would require the approval of up to 4 parties, which is the county commissioners, the county delegation, the administrators of this federal program that are in Concord that were spoken to in August of 2020, and potentially the U.S. Department of the Interior. So I think that clarifies the nature of the question I was asking.
okay, would you be so kind as to, Becky is not here, who's taking notes? Kristen. Would you be so kind as to send to Kristen that language? So
Sure.
that it can be inserted in that, and I will make a motion to approve the minutes with those corrections, requested by Commissioner, Commissioner Ness and, Commissioner Strang. All in favor? Aye. Did you vote aye?
I did.
Okay. Next, special meeting of the Commission of March 1st, 2022. This is a special commissioners meeting called by Commissioner Wood, Strang, and Ness. Have you all read the minutes of that meeting? I have some comments on that. I do not believe that the comments that I made during that meeting, as well as the comments that I made when I reclused myself from that meeting, are accurate, but, so I am going to abstain from voting on those. There are enough commissioners here to vote them to be approved, so you don't need my vote, but I will call for a vote, a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. The minutes for Public Special Commission meeting on March 11th, 2022. This was a special meeting called by Commissioner Wood, Commissioner Kadash, and Commissioner McLear. And I would like to, as I did at that meeting, thank Commissioner Wood for coming forward and recognizing the urgency and importance to have that special meeting, since the capital budget had been frozen prior to that, and that the HVAC equipment that had been ordered and was en route in order to put air conditioning in the base lodge for the summer of 2022 was in jeopardy of being sold to somebody else. And we had a matter of 24 hours, and we had a very good meeting, and the minutes reflect the subject of that. So once again, thank you to Jade for.
There's no need to thank me. I actually thank you for getting the information over in a timely fashion so that we could approve that project.
Well, it's good to have that type of collaboration. So, any comments on the minutes?
Tom, did that happen? Have we gotten anything yet, or?
Oh, we paid for it, we paid for it.
I know we paid for it, but have we gotten anything?
No. I mean, it'll all be brought on property when it's ready to be installed.
Okay.
So it's being collected, I think, it's like in
multiple
4
locations.
different states right now, so it's being collected so they can get ready for install in the next month or 2.
Right, so you're getting it in pieces. Great. Congratulations.
Okay, so are there any other comments on that special meeting on the March 11th. I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. We would, the next order of business is new commissioner swearing. I have a copy of Commissioner Sprang's oath of office, signed and notarized at another point in time in another location that's traditionally done at these meetings, but do not have to be done at this meeting. So, Commissioner Strang, welcome to the commission.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to working with you.
Yeah.
I have also received, notice from Commissioner Strang, that the Code of Ethics, which is typically signed by, the commissioners and has been signed by every commissioner since it was imposed, except for Commissioner Ness, who opposes it. If he would please sign it, and he has told me that he will not sign it until his lawyer has reviewed it. So, we assume once your lawyer has reviewed it, we'll hear from you as to what your status is.
Happy to.
Okay, and if you have any questions on it, please feel free to ask me or any of the other commissioners. And you may even want to ask former Commissioner Hicks if you know, because he was one of the drafters.
Okay.
All right, now to the subject that David brought up. And I hope to have a calm dialogue on this. I have a copy of a letter dated January, or when is it? When did you send this to me? March 16th, from Mike Sylvia. It was a letter sent to Rusty McLear informing him that his term as commissioner of the GAC expired on November of 2020, and you are not presently validly serving as a GAC commissioner. We all have recognized that the laws state that a commissioner will be, in the situation of a vacancy, a commissioner will be appointed only for the term that is unserved. And Chair Sylvia is correct that Rusty McLear's term should have expired in November 20, and since that time, he has been serving as a de facto commissioner in front of everybody, in front of the delegation, in front of the delegation's chair and vice chair, since November 2020 until the point of this letter that came in. I have a opinion letter from a legal firm, which I do not need to disclose who they are. And it says, is Rusty a valid GAC commissioner? And their legal opinion is, yes, he was. He was appointed in May, June 2020 for what was repeatedly noticed by the delegation as a 5-year term of appointment. Contrary to Dr. Strang's term, which was noticed as filling a vacancy for only until November 2022. And it's a long legal brief, and I don't think we need to go through it word by word, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of law that says that even if not validly appointed at the time, Rusty's votes are valid as a de facto officer. If, for example, anytime he was one of 3 people voting since 2020, you would go back and say, well, they weren't valid. Well, they were, because he was de facto, because he was operating in open public and nobody was raising their hand every meeting and saying, you are not a commissioner. So, in case law, and he continues in office until the successor is appointed. And I'm just gonna read one short piece of the case law. An officer who has been properly appointed and who is serving in a particular position may be found to be made de facto officer as opposed to a mere usurper of power, enjoying certain privileges and protections. A de facto officer is one who has reputation of being the officer he or she assumes to be, and yet is not a good officer in point of law. So what they're saying is, if there was an error made, and there was an error made here, and I don't think it was Mike, this was during COVID, and I recall you and Brian and I have a discussion that bringing the delegation together was a big problem at that time. It was expensive, and it was only 4 months. So, yes, it was an error made. But we've operated quite well since then. And Rusty has performed without any controversy that I know of. And he has been functioning as de facto. So what I'm proposing is that he sits in this meeting as de facto. And in April, in a matter of weeks, we're gonna have another appointment hearing. And the delegation, and Rusty has agreed that he has an interest in reapplying and will be considered with other people that will apply. And if he is reappointed, he will serve out his term for the remainder of the 5 years. If he's not, somebody else will do that. But that's gonna require, what, Michael, I've been trying to have a meeting with you for months and months and months on, and Brian was trying to have a meeting. That will require an agreement of reason amongst us. And since we're here to make sure that Gunstock is healthy and that the management of Gunstock are free to move forward without concerns of issues, of any political issues or any improprieties here, I would suggest, and I will defer to you, to Michael, to either concur with me or to come up with an alternative solution, that we allow Rusty to continue de facto until the point in time where you have the next appointment hearing, which is in April, and he is either reappointed or not.
I'd like to make a point of order.
Sure.
So, first, if the anonymous legal brief that you're reading from is what was circulated, is that what was circulated in the last 24 hours by email?
Yes.
And so if the commission has received counsel, why are the commissioners not allowed to know who counsel is that provided that information?
You received the flyer?
Peter, I don't know how to answer your question. I'm just told that I can rely on this information.
I think if you're introducing information that we're supposed to consider, you need to identify the source of the information.
Right, so if someone's giving you legal advice regarding New Hampshire law, the first thing I'd like to know is what's their name and what's their bar number.
Didn't you just say that you got a copy of this letter?
Right, it's completely anonymous.
anonymous.
I don't know if it came from someone who works at
No, I
Wendy's.
forwarded it to the Rusty.
There's no name, no identification on it. What I find exceptionally curious is it goes off into citing something called Corpus Juris Secundum, which is a legal encyclopedia. And of all things, since I am a member of the Georgia Bar, a case from Georgia in New Hampshire. I don't know how often New Hampshire law cites Georgia law, but the point is, we're entitled to know where legal advice is coming from. And so if that is legal advice that any member of this commission is relying upon, we need to know who it came from. Did it come from Zoom Legal, or did it come from some lawyer who has credentials? That's what we're asking.
Do you see any problem with giving the name? Do you see any problem with sharing the name of the company?
Well, Peter, what I'm trying to address here, what I'm asking the commission to do, what I'm asking the delegation to do, on behalf of Gunstock Mountain Resort, is to try to put some things aside, get out of the legal battles that we've been in for months, and move forward. This is a reasonable request that we agree to move forward for one meeting, allow Commissioner McLear to continue performing de facto, as his lawyer has told him he can, and we conduct the meeting, and look at what it is right now. It's 20 minutes, and we've only approved minutes, and we haven't got into any of the important business of the day.
So, and we don't know who Rusty's lawyer is. I think Rusty has the means to hire the best counsel he's willing to pay for. And so, not telling us where that alleged legal opinion or brief, which is of neither, given my experience, and not knowing who it came from makes it questionable. So in order to try and achieve some reasonable resolution of this, what I would suggest is that we acknowledge that it's the delegation that's the point of authority under the enabling legislation. And it is the delegation and only the delegation that has the authority to determine who is a commissioner and when. So what I would suggest is that the commission adopt a resolution that acknowledges that, in fact, the delegation has provided notice to Commissioner McLear. There is a vacancy that will be filled on April 12th. And there is a question of law, which is, did his term expire in November of 2020 or at some time thereafter? And you've made an admission that his term is questionable and he may be a de facto officer. And accordingly, under the resolution I'm proposing, he should recuse himself or abstain from any votes at this meeting, understanding that there's a legal question that needs to be answered. And that he abstain until he's either reappointed, when he is then a valid commissioner, because if he takes a vote now, when his status that is questionable has been publicly acknowledged, anything that he participates in is suspect.
Well, first of all, I don't admit that my status is questionable. I have said, yes, I will reapply, and I have said that my letter to the commission, that is solely to stop the conversation that continues to go on about my position. And if I don't plan on resigning. I plan on reapplying. And if I reapply and I get put in or get voted in as a member, then I would think that would stop most of this conversation. So I'm not saying I'm resigning.
I don't think anyone has asked you to resign.
Yes, they have.
Well, I'm not aware of that, and that's not part of the conversation right now. The conversation is,
these guys right up front have.
you've been given notice by the body that appoints you that you're not in office. And so there is a question of law. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
And the pragmatic thing for the commission to do is to have a resolution acknowledging that there is an issue, that you should recuse yourself during this questionable status, and we can move forward.
If we could do that, but we've been trying to talk to Mr. Sylvia for months, and he doesn't answer. How many letters do we have?
Well, it goes back until, it was right after the Ness hearing that this started, and the Ness hearing was September 9th.
Okay, so we have a lot of letters back and forth, not back and forth, back,
Just back,
no
or
forth.
one way.
If I might, I think the controlling legal authority here is RSA 399:8, vacancies. If a vacancy occurs in said commission, it shall be filled for the remainder of the term. That's the law. No legal brief, no one person's wrong decision can overrule state law. The only way to change state law is to introduce a bill in the legislature, have it passed by both houses, and signed by the governor. So this is the controlling law, and that is that Rusty's term expired in November of 2020. And the county delegation has since ruled that there is a vacancy. That means that there is no one in the seat. It really doesn't matter if Rusty wants to stay, if he's refusing to resign. It doesn't, we're not talking about prior votes, we're talking about what's happening right here and now. And so I support Commissioner Ness's resolution that Commissioner McLear be recused from any further votes.
Your fans in Belknap County are not with you about that.
We're not talking about political support in Belknap County, Rusty. We're talking about following the law.
No, we're talking about political support. What's that?
Can I make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
I will second that.
So should we take a vote? Or do we wanna discuss?
Can you read the resolution?
So,
Can you,
the resolution is that the commission adopt a resolution that acknowledges the delegation, that would be the Belknap County delegation, provided a notice to the commission that Commissioner McLear's position was in question, that they deemed it vacant, and that vacancy will be filled on April 12th. I believe that they raised the issue of the two provisions of the enabling legislation, which is 399:4 and :8. And that given that his term may have expired on November 17th, 2020, the commission should recognize the delegation's conclusion as to this matter, since they're the appointed agency, and the appropriate and pragmatic thing in the short term, which would be until a vote is taken on April 12th, is to cause Commissioner McLear to recuse himself from any votes.
May I say something?
yeah,
One thing I would like to edit is that, if I may, or make a change to it, is say, when you say that I am about to be recused, I wanna make sure it says, through no fault of my own.
That's fine. I think we all recognize there's a question of law here, and no one's alleging any ill will or bad.
No, I just wanna make sure as we go down the road.
Okay.
Okay.
Peter, I've heard your motion. Why is it so important to you when it's clear that there was an error here and that Commissioner McLear has been functioning since November 2020 as de facto commissioner?
Can we stop with using the Latin term de facto and simply agree that the appointed agency has raised legal questions as to the validity of his acts as a commissioner? And if we are on notice that there is a legal question, which then brings into question his participation in any action by the commission, pragmatically we're saying, please recuse yourself until this issue is resolved, which may be multiple ways. It may be resolved by a court of law, or it may be resolved by a hearing.
Do me a favor, I let you finish, let me finish. And I'm chair, and I'll call on you when you can give a comment. And please don't interrupt me. We are here to do our work for Gunstock Mountain Resort. If this motion is carried forward, then we are gonna put in question every vote that Commissioner McLear had from November 20 forward. Yes, and every time there was a 3-person vote, and that was frequent because you weren't in a lot of meetings, he was the 3rd vote. So they can go back and look at those and determine, were those votes valid? And if he was not, if we are now saying he wasn't a commissioner, and therefore we need to reappoint him, what I'm proposing here is that we move forward. We recognize there was a mistake made. I say no harm done, because to my knowledge, and to everybody that I know of, Mr. McLear operated with good intentions and did a great job and continued to do a job. And what I am suggesting is that Mr. McLear remains in his chair until April 12th, is it? April 12th, when there is a new appointment, and he either gets appointed as the chair and he comes back into his seat, and or somebody else comes. But what that does is it closes the loop, frankly, on if we're gonna have any issues of past votes and whatnot. Yes, David.
No one is talking about past votes. Commissioner Ness's resolution is for him to recuse himself from votes from this point on. It has been duly motioned and seconded. It cannot be ignored. It has to be brought to a vote.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote on it.
Can
Peter?
you repeat the motion for the record?
very long.
It was. Let me see if I can do it in parts. So, we're proposing a resolution acknowledging that, A, the county delegation provided the commission with notice that Commissioner McLear's commissionership was in question, that they acknowledged a vacancy existed that will be filled on April 12th, 2022, that in the delegation's view, Commissioner McLear's term expired on or about November 17, 2020, and that the resolution recognizes the delegation's conclusion as to this matter since they are the appointed agency under the law, and that in order to be pragmatic, the commission adopts the resolution asking that Commissioner McLear recuse himself from this meeting until someone is appointed as his successor on April 12th.
Okay, we have a second. Who seconded it? Jane
I second.
seconded it. Let's do a roll call vote. Peter?
Approve.
David?
Approve.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Can I make one comment? It's very clear that in legal remedies, because of your fear about past votes being questioned, it's entirely clear that tribunals or parties can agree to retroactive or prospective solutions to a legal issue. So it's not necessarily a fait accompli that all of his votes will be then questioned. That's up to the parties deciding how this
I'm
matters.
glad to hear that. Thank you.
Can I ask that you and, Commissioner McLear also record your votes, please?
Yeah, I vote nay.
I'm sorry?
Nay.
Why
Rusty's
would
supposed
he-
to recuse himself, so.
I can't vote.
You can vote on that
Motion
vote.
passes, 3-1. Next order of business.
Crop TV.